is our final presentation for Group 1, and our group members are Chad Hutchings, Kisha Chrisman, Lisbeth Custodio, and Macy Hoffman, and we're going to talk about healthy and unhealthy food and behavior choices. And we're going to start our topic and assets with Chad.
So, healthy versus unhealthy food and behaviors. Our community asset is Northeast Texas Children's Museum. For my IBIC unit, the second grade students are creating a poster board project to research and organize healthy and unhealthy foods or behaviors. The students will present their project to the class. Next slide. For our learning objective, the overview of IBP topic is healthy versus unhealthy food and behaviors. Like I said, our community asset is the Northeast Texas Children's Museum. For our summary, the second grade students will create a poster about the topic of their choice, either on healthy or unhealthy foods and behaviors. Research in small groups, students will research the topic of healthy and unhealthy foods and behaviors. They will look through magazines and grocery ads to find and cut out foods, behaviors, items that can sort into healthy or unhealthy groups. After researching, students will create a checklist of healthy foods and behaviors and places in the community they can use to create healthy habits. For example, children's museum, dentist office, grocery store, library, park, etc. The plan design, students will journal, draw, and write about their favorite healthy foods and healthy behaviors that they can incorporate into their everyday life. Students will count coins and money to pay for healthy foods in a pretend store. Students will use coin value knowledge. Students will make a list of items and materials needed to make healthy choices. Foods would be fruits, vegetables, water, cooking tools, measuring cups. Exercising, such as shoes, ball, jump ropes, games, bike. Behaviors, such as using toothbrush, toothpaste, bath, soap, comb. To build and create, they will use a poster board and checklist. The reflect and modify, students will reflect on what they have learned about healthy versus unhealthy food choices. They will recognize the effects of what unhealthy foods can do to their body over a period of time versus the benefits of healthier food choices. Students will discuss with their group members their overall view of the project and see if anything needs to be added in. Students will make sure that every member's opinion and thoughts are heard and expressed in the project if it's appropriate. The presentation of their project, the students will go in front of the class with their poster boards and present their project to the class. The students will discuss about the main idea of their projects and will also make sure to answer any questions that may be brought up by fellow classmates. The teacher will grade primarily off of a participation grade and if the project seems to have the ideas met. Next slide. Learning objective poster board project. The learning standard is TEKS 115.4 Health Education Grade 2. The learning objective components, the student will be able to decipher between healthy and unhealthy food choices and how to incorporate them into their life. The student will also be able to follow the instructions given by the instructor. The audience is the students. Behavior will be ability to separate materials into component parts and show relationship between parts. This includes researching and organizing. Condition, given magazines and newspapers. A, research and identify healthy and unhealthy foods and behaviors. B, categorize findings and group into healthy and unhealthy. C, connect categories to community resource and assets. D, explain how to incorporate healthy choices into their daily life. For degree, it's with an 80% accuracy. The whole objective, when given magazines and newspapers, students will A, identify examples of healthy and unhealthy foods and behaviors with 80% accuracy. B, organize their findings into categories of healthy and unhealthy. C, connect those categories into community resources and assets. D, explain how to incorporate healthy choices in their daily life. Next slide.
Okay, so in the first video with Super Fab Lab, the teacher asked the students to go grab their lunch boxes, and then she tells the kids they will learn the food groups using the food that is in their lunch boxes. The students separate their food into the food groups, and then they draw pictures of what a nutritious meal looks like. In the second video, it talks about exercise. Exercise helps increase the size of the cortex and increases the blood vessels in the brain. It also increases the hippocampus, number of mitochondria in the cells, the size of the heart muscles, and the amount of oxygen your blood can carry. It helps strengthen your diaphragm. All of this will increase your energy, stamina, and overall health. In the third video, it talks about why we brush our teeth. Brushing and cleaning our teeth helps keep our teeth throughout our lives. Enamel is stronger than our bones and our bodies. In order to take care of the sensitive part of your teeth, which is the pulp, we have to take care of the outside of our teeth. If we don't take care of our teeth, the outside of our teeth will become damaged. There is more bacteria in our mouths than there are people on earth. So it is important to get rid of the bad bacteria by brushing your teeth twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. Next slide. And here we have the healthy plate. It's an example of the 4 food groups, which is fruit, vegetables, meat, dairy, and grains. And it's essential to eat something from each group every day. Next slide. Here the students will drag the images and sort them whether they are healthy or not healthy. Next slide.
This is Lisbeth.
Okay, I don't see anything on the screen.
Okay, I can go ahead and do this one. This slide's going to be about the poster board project and the project objective. It's an overview of the healthy versus unhealthy poster board food sort and project. And for the activity, the student will research the healthy and unhealthy foods and behaviors in the story of Choose Good Foods, My Eating Tips, and then they'll organize those into groups and then display them and present them to the class. And for the learning objective, in small groups of 3 or 4 students, they'll use magazines and newspapers and grocery ads or pictures, and they'll research and identify the unhealthy foods and behaviors. Then they'll categorize them into groups, and then they'll connect those categories to the community resources and assets, and then they'll explain how they can incorporate those healthy choices into their daily life. Next is the rubric.
Okay, so for the poster board project, we have the healthy versus unhealthy foods and behaviors. And our rubric for 4 points: paid close attention to instructions and asked questions when needed, followed all directions in the order they were given, was able to research and identify the healthy and unhealthy foods, was able to categorize findings of the food, was able to make connections with the categories, can explain the learning objective. For 3 points, listen closely to instructions and follow directions without a lot of help from the teacher, was able to research healthy and unhealthy foods, was able to categorize the unhealthy foods, was able to make some connections with unhealthy foods, could explain half of the learning objective. For 2 points, listened to instructions but did not complete all directions, was able to identify healthy foods, was able to categorize 3 foods, made little connection with the foods, could explain only some of the learning objective. For 1 point, did not listen to instructions and only followed directions when prompted by the teacher, did no research on healthy or unhealthy foods, could not categorize the foods, was not able to make any connections, could not explain the objective. Next slide. For our interactive read aloud, so for the book that was Choose Good Food, My Eating Tips by Gina Belisario, illustrated by Molly Congor. Why did you choose this book? I chose this book because it gives students opportunity to think about which foods are healthy or unhealthy. They walk through the store and view a variety of options of both healthy and unhealthy choices. It discusses food groups and what our bodies need to stay healthy, including healthy habits such as exercise. For our TEKS, it was 110.4 English Language Arts and Reading, grade 2nd, knowledge and skills, developed and sustained foundational language skills, listening, speaking, discussion, and thinking oral language. The students developed oral language through listening, speaking, and discussion. The student is expected to A. Listen actively, ask relevant questions to clarify information, and answer questions using multi-word responses. For TEKS 113.13 Social Studies Grade 2, B. Knowledge and skills, 20 social studies skills. The student uses problem solving and decision making skills, working independently and with others in a variety of settings. Next slide. So some key vocabulary is healthy foods, vitamins, minerals, fats, proteins, energy, vegetables, exercise, dairy group. Before reading, ask who knows some healthy or unhealthy foods. We will have a discussion about healthy and unhealthy foods as a class, and we will fill out a chart about the foods that they like to eat. We would then use a graphic organizer to organize the foods from the first chart between the healthy and unhealthy foods. We will then do a quiz about the healthy and unhealthy foods. During reading, active read aloud, have students split up portions or pages of the book and read them out loud for greater comprehension of the text. Some questions would be, what are some healthy snacks we can eat instead of unhealthy choices like cookies? What are some of the benefits of eating healthy foods? This will give each student a chance to connect with the book and apply what they have read into real-life scenarios. Also, it allows the students to engage so that they better comprehend the information being taught to them. It is important for our kids to know the benefit of a healthy snack over junk food. Also, this will serve as a comprehension and participation check for the teacher. After reading, have the students discuss either with a partner or group what some of their future healthy substitutions will be instead of junk food options, such as apples and carrots instead of chips and dip. Also, have the students make a chart of the 5 food groups and what goes into each food group. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as they can classify the groups and some examples of what goes into each one, have the students include color and or pictures into the chart. This allows for the students to fully grasp the new information and have a little fun in the process. Also, it can serve as a comprehension and participation check for the teacher. Next slide.
Okay, this is integrating math and science, and our title and topic is going to be the poster board project with the healthy versus unhealthy choices. And this is going to incorporate math and science into our lesson plan. And the learning objective is that in small groups, about 3 or 4 students, the second grade students will research the differences between healthy and unhealthy food choices and behaviors. and they're going to be able to identify those. And using magazines, grocery ads, pictures, newspapers, they'll cut them out and sort them. And they'll create a poster board showing the different choices and benefits of the healthy foods versus the unhealthy foods. And they'll be expected to work with their group and be cooperative and come up with different ideas and problem solve to include on their poster boards. And all of the students in the group will have a role and contribute to the project. And then after the project's completed, they'll present it to the class, and that's where they'll explain these decisions and show the information that they've learned and that they've comprehended it. And some essential questions that either the teacher or the student could ask would be, what are the benefits of healthy foods over unhealthy foods? And what substitutions can we make for unhealthy snacks? Also, how do healthy behaviors help us, but also how do unhealthy behaviors hurt us? And we want the students to understand the choices and the benefits of healthy foods, as well as the negatives of unhealthy food choices. And we want students to know also how to count coins and money to pay for those healthy items in a pretend store, as well as know coin value. So they'll choose the healthy choices, and then the math element will be counting money and coins to pay for those items. We also want the students to be able to determine an example of a healthy food over an unhealthy food choice and what that looks like, and be able to explain and describe those, as well as locate where they can find healthy choices. On the performance task, they're going to create the poster board that explains and describes these things and why it's important to know the difference between the healthy versus unhealthy choices. And they'll present that to the class. And this is where we'll be able to see their comprehension and how they can explain and describe it. And we also want them to know their coin value and be able to count coins and money to pay for those healthy choices in the pretend store. And other evidence to check for understanding throughout this entire lesson is that the teacher will be observing, monitoring the students as they are working in their groups, asking questions, answering questions, and the teacher will check for understanding and to see if the students have the knowledge on how to apply that information into their everyday life. This is the learning plan and pretty much an overview of everything we've gone over so far. The book that we chose was Choose Good Food, My Eating Tips. And the teacher will ask questions before, during, and after this book to ask students and to help them name what foods and behaviors are healthy and which are unhealthy. And that will also help the students with information to make their chart. They can also at this time make a chart of what foods they like to eat, and that might help them make decisions on what substitutions they could use for any unhealthy food choices. And the students will have a discussion about what happens when we eat healthy foods, but also what happens when we eat unhealthy foods and how that affects our body. And we want them to understand how the healthy behaviors help us, but also how unhealthy behaviors can hurt us. And the teacher's going to show the Google slide of the healthy plate. That was with the food groups and different examples of proteins and carbohydrates and fruits and vegetables. And at that time, they could even point out maybe some of their favorite foods. What foods do they like? What foods do they don't like? And they could discuss the food groups. And next was the interactive Google slide where they could sort the different healthy and unhealthy foods into the different categories. This is also another time when they could discuss which foods they like, which foods they don't like, which ones they've tried, or maybe some foods that they've never tried before. And then next was the videos, the Super Fab Lab food groups. That was the Sid the Science Kid video where they sort out of their lunch boxes into food groups. And also the video of how exercise benefits your body and why we brush our teeth. And for the performance task, that is when they were in small groups and they're going to use their materials such as their magazines, grocery ads, newspapers, pictures, sort them, cut them out, categorize them into healthy and unhealthy food groups, and apply those to the poster board to display those choices. And then after they research, they will be able to make a checklist of healthy and unhealthy foods and behaviors, as well as places in the community that they can use to create those healthy habits. So the community assets could be the children's museum, the dentist office, a park, a library, different places like that in the community. And the teacher can show images of those places so they can relate to those and become more familiar. And the students will journal and draw and write about their favorite healthy foods and their favorite healthy behaviors. And this is where they can talk about how they can incorporate those into their everyday life. And then the students will also count coins and money to pay for healthy choices that they've chosen in the pretend store. And they'll use the coin and dollar values to add and subtract to come up with those. They'll use the coin value slide that we have next, and this is going to show a visual of the coin values. And the students will make a list of the items and materials that they'll need to make healthy choices. And we went over this earlier. For foods, they would need fruits, vegetables, water, cooking tools, measuring cups. For exercising, they would need shoes, balls, toys, jump rope, games, bike. And for behaviors, that would be a toothbrush, toothpaste, a bath, soap, comb, anything that you would need to create healthy habits and make healthy choices in their life. And then to close, the students will reflect on what they've learned, and they'll use that knowledge to present their poster board to the class, and they'll describe the healthy and unhealthy food choices and behaviors. They'll tell what they chose and why they chose it. And then that's when they can give any other information that they've learned throughout the inquiry process. And this is the time that the teacher can check for comprehension and understanding to see if they can apply what they've learned to their everyday life. And last, we have the coin value slide. And this is the visual that the students can use to look at to differentiate between the different coins while they're counting in the pretend store to pay for their food. And this has been our healthy, unhealthy foods and behavior final presentation for Group 1. Thank you for watching.